Start off on Section 230, because you said 3 months ago you intended to clarify the meaning of Section 230, but the clock ran out on you. What do you think 230 should mean?
Well, that's part of the reason why we wanted to start that conversation about the immunity provision, specifically of Section 230. But now it will be up to, of course, elected officials in both the executive and legislative branches to figure it out. And President-elect Biden has campaigned on its repeal. There are bipartisan members of Congress who want to look at revisions. So I think it is appropriate for the legislature to take the lead on that issue.
Yeah, but I mean, act like you're retired, okay? Because in just a few hours, you will be. I'm hearing people talk out of both sides of their mouths here. Like they say, oh, we don't want these social networks to have this blanket immunity and protection under 230. But then they complain when the social networks choose to moderate content in certain ways, which it seems to me like if they lose certain 230 protections, they'll be doing a lot more of, right?
Well, so the narrow question that we were focused on was, as I said, the immunity provision. And there has been some concern expressed that are these social media tech giants operating in good faith? Are they using the otherwise objectionable standard within the immunity provision appropriately? Those are the types of things that we were hoping to explore, because I think, as I said back in 2017, there isn't any transparency into how they make these decisions or even who makes these decisions. And I think now you see a bipartisan recognition in Washington and even around the country that these are increasingly the platforms where public discourse is held, and we have no insight into who's allowed to speak and when and why.
So, Ajit, I'm curious in your advice to the people who succeed you working on this issue of Section 230. As you mentioned, it is a bipartisan issue. What would be your hope that they can accomplish in terms of practical reform in the next several months? Because this had been a priority of yours since October. I would expect that there might be some regret that you had not been able to complete that. So what is your hope that can be done now?
I think broadly speaking, my hope is that Congress in a bipartisan way will sit down and put on the page the basic principles of an open internet. That might apply to network operators. It might apply to content providers like Google and Facebook and Twitter. Everybody in the stack, so to speak, I think should be governed by similar provisions, because ultimately from the consumer perspective, the question is, what am I allowed to say on the internet and what am I allowed to see? And to the extent we have asymmetric regulation, depending on where on the stack you lie, that's not something that serves consumers or the industry very well. So I hope Congress will take a holistic view as opposed to just demagoguing an issue, as we might see in some quarters.
Chairman Pai, another question about your legacy in terms of the changes you made to net neutrality. What are your concerns about some of the changes that you made that might be rolled back? And what is the danger if the changes, or what do you see as the danger if some of those changes are repealed?
Well, I think the past 3+ years since we made our decision have demonstrated decisively that the hysterical predictions made by some about the death of the internet or slowing speeds or having to pay $15 per month to post on Twitter have been proven false. In fact, speeds now are over twice what they were when we made our decision. Millions more Americans have access to the internet today than they did in 2017. Infrastructure investment has gone up significantly on both the wired and wireless side. So our decision was correct. Moreover, I think the hypocrisy of those who advocated for so-called net neutrality rules is laid bare, given that they now are the ones demanding that network operators, tech giants, and even broadcasters and cable companies censor views that they don't like. And so here, too, I hope Congress is able to put those basic principles of an open internet on the page. No blocking, no throttling, no anti-competitive paid prioritization, transparency, and make sure that every consumer is protected regardless of where in the internet economy a particular company might be.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder, I mean, we've seen congressional hearings on tech policy, and I would say the response, the reviews have been checkered. What gives you hope that a broad swath of lawmakers truly understand the issues at play? I mean, and if they don't, do you have hope that they're about to?
Well, I do think that on some of the FCC's core initiatives over the past 2 years, we have seen a bipartisan recognition in Congress that our work is important. For example, the steps we've taken to close the digital divide. We just finished our Rural Digital Opportunity Fund Phase 1 to get broadband to up to 5 million Americans. We have Phase 2 coming up soon if the next FCC does the necessary administrative steps. On 5G, we pursued U.S. leadership through aggressive spectrum policy and working with our allies on security. There, too, we see a bipartisan recognition that that's important. important. So I think that the FCC and other administration officials will have to work collaboratively with Congress to make sure that everyone's on the same page, because at the end of the day, these are not Republican issues or Democratic issues. They're American issues. And I do hope that the future regulators and the future legislators will work in that spirit.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.